Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am so excited to be here. Going through listening to the resolutions this morning was very interesting, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to be here to see the election. You know, democracy is a wonderful, beautiful thing, but sometimes the worst part about it is that you have to choose between two exceptional people for the same job. And I know Jacqueline has been dedicated, and she will continue to be dedicated going forward and working very hard for AUMA and her municipalities, I know. So thank you for the work you do, Jacqueline. I also have to say thank you. You know, in 10 years of being an MLA and a year as being the Minister of Municipal Affairs, I've been to a lot of conferences and conventions, and I think that Helen and Chris and Linda all deserve a congratulations, because I'll tell you, this is one of the best run conventions and one I've had the most fun at in a long time. So thank you very much for putting this on and making us feel so welcome. I know that throughout the convention, most of my colleagues have been here. Actually, I think all of them have been here. I can't think of one that I didn't see at some point through this convention. And I know I've seen three this morning already. We have our Associate Minister of Wellness, Dave Rodney, here, as well as MLAs Maureen Kubinik and Sahil Quadri. And I know that there's probably some more here. So thank you to my colleagues for attending. Now, this is my first AUMA that I've got to address you as the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and I'm pretty excited about it. For those of you who don't know me very well, you know, I got to tell you, I was a rancher in Coronation. I had cattle, I had horses, I became a teacher, subsidized my ranching habit very nicely, and I had the perfect life. I got to teach all day, which I love doing, and I got to ride my horse and ranch on the weekends and the evenings, and I had a great life. But I shot my mouth off one too many times about the need to make sure that our communities are growing and prosperous. Not just for me, but so that my kids have the opportunity to live in any single community they want to in this province. And the next thing I knew, I was the MLA. And the first thing that happened, my phone had just got hooked up, and the first phone call I got was from Deputy Premier Shirley McCullen, who said, I want you to go work on rural development. I want you to go work on community building. That's what you campaigned on. That's why you're here. Go for it. So I traveled. There are 422 communities, not necessarily legal entities, but communities in this province. And I have been in the full 10 years to 329 of them. But since becoming minister, I've wiped the slate clean. And my staff now tell me that I've met with close to 80 of the communities, and I've been to just about 30 of them. There's a lot to go to, but I plan on getting to every single one again as minister, so watch for me coming into your town. And I'm still dedicated to building better communities, urban or rural. You know, I wrote a book called 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. I did it from 4 to 7 o'clock in the morning when I had nothing else to do sometimes. And I traveled all over talking about it because I don't know. I guess Einstein, I think, was described insanity as focusing on one thing too long or too many things all at once. Maybe I'm crazy. But my purpose of being here is to continue to build better communities. And I'll never stop doing that. In fact, someday I'll go back to riding my horse and teaching when I find someone who's just as dedicated, who's happy to take my place. You would be surprised at how few people are thrilled to take my place right now, though. We have a lot of work to do. So being Minister of Municipal Affairs has been interesting, because the very first phone calls I got when I was appointed were actually a lot of the media. And they called and said, well, you wrote this book, 13 Ways to Kill Your Community, so you're going to do everything that you said needed to be done as Minister of Municipal Affairs. And I'd smile at them and say, you didn't read the book. Because it's not about what the Minister of Municipal Affairs is going to do to save 349 municipalities and ensure their long-term prosperity for the next generation. It's not just about what I'm going to do. It's about what you're going to do, because the success of communities begins right there at home with people who are dedicated. I know many of you, it's almost a volunteer position to work in your communities, but you want to build a better community. My role as Minister of Municipal Affairs is to do everything in my power to help make sure that you're successful and to enhance the partnership that we have between the province and municipalities. Now, I've I've been an MLA for over 10 years now, and I have never been so excited about being in government or having the opportunities that we have now since the first day I was elected. And the first day I was elected, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, which is probably why I was so excited. But now, I'm even more excited. I'm excited for several reasons. I'm excited because we have a premier, and you heard her give that speech at breakfast. We have a premier that gets it. She has a vision for this province. It's one of the most exciting things that she said the other morning was when she said we had a first quarter budget that estimates that we could have a $3 billion deficit. But we don't budget based on some first quarter estimate. We're building a better Alberta, and our vision isn't just to the second quarter and the third quarter. Our vision is to 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years down the road. And we have to make sure we have long-term plans and that we will not balance the books on the backs of municipalities who have just as many challenges as we do. I'm excited also because I have a host of colleagues that also get it. They have traveled more in the last 8 months than I think ever before. Everywhere I go, I hear about other colleagues who were just there a few days ago or a few weeks ago, how they're from Edmonton going to Calgary, and Calgary going to rural Alberta, and rural Alberta spending time in the cities because there is no us versus them. They know that they don't just work for their constituents, they work for every single community in this province. And so it makes it exciting to be at any and every caucus and cabinet meeting in the legislature. And I'm excited too because I get to work with you. I've been to 329 of the communities in this province out of the 422. And everywhere I go, I remind people, my own colleagues, that everywhere I go, I find creative ideas and people who are excited, dedicated, determined, vigilant, and relentless in pursuit of building stronger communities. And you know, I know that lots of politicians will stand up sometimes and say, if we just make sure families are okay, that's good, because they're the building blocks of a good society. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. After all my pursuits and all the work that I've done, I sincerely believe that if we build better communities, strong communities that have good health care and education and recreation facilities that add a quality of life and make sure that the economy is strong and they have access to good jobs, families can take care of themselves. And that's why we have to be vigilant and work together to make sure we build better communities. Now, that does not mean we don't have our challenges. We live in the most successful, prosperous place in North America. We have more opportunities here than anywhere else in the world. This is the best place in the world to be. But we have challenges that we have to recognize. I know from the dialogue sessions yesterday that there are tensions between municipalities. There are issues about revenue sharing and cost sharing and the distribution of some of the revenue sources that we have. I know that there are issues around capital. I remind people, out of all the other 9 provinces, when you average the support they get from their provincial government, it works out to $192 per capita. $192 per capita. Alberta alone, when you leave it out of the formula and take its nominal sum, $502 per capita. 192 average amongst the other 9 provinces, $502 per capita here in Alberta. We have incredible support for our municipalities, but that doesn't mean that we're done. There are very few other jurisdictions in Canada or in North America that are experiencing the growth that we have. And I know we always talk as a province about how those people come, 1 million people in the next 10 years, who don't bring their roads or their schools or their hospitals. But I remind everybody all the time, they also don't bring their water or their wastewater or their recreation facilities or their sidewalks or all the things that you guys provide. And so your stress with that population growth is just as paramount as the stress we have in providing infrastructure to meet that growth. We talk constantly and incessantly about economic development and the need to make sure that every region of the province shares in the economic success and activity of this province. That's a challenge. We discuss seniors housing because we know it's a challenge. In fact, I believe my colleague and predecessor in the housing department, because it's in Municipal Affairs now, indicated to a lot of people that we have 225,000, I think is the number, of seniors in this province. And in the next generation, which is only 20 years, we're going to go to over 450,000 seniors. We don't have enough adequate housing now. If we don't address it constantly, we're going to be too far behind to ever catch up. And that's not just a provincial issue, that's a municipal issue. So we're undertaking a lot of activities in municipal affairs to make sure that we can be successful. The municipal sustainability strategy, which I'm proud of because it eliminates the dissolution study process that tore communities apart. As one side would say, if we just dissolve into the county, then our taxes will go down. The other side, but we lose our identity. And by the time the dissolution process was done, communities would have created such a rift that it would take a generation to put them back together. That's not building successful communities. And the municipal sustainability strategy wasn't something designed by the provincial government. It was designed by the AUMA and its members and AMD&C and its members to find a collaborative strategy that would ensure long-term success for our communities. We have the Municipal Government Act, and I have to tell you, the Municipal Government Act, you've heard me say quite a few times, one of the largest pieces of legislation we have in the province of Alberta. It's huge. If I recall correctly, there's 18 different divisions with 640 some odd sections. It's massive and it's complicated. When it was made, it was one of the most progressive documents across Canada to govern municipal governance. But it's time to update it to a modern document for the 21st century, for the realities and the challenges we have in the 21st century, that focuses on making sure that we know our roles and responsibilities and how we're going to, because some roles and responsibilities are clearly municipal, some are clearly provincial, but the majority of them always have overlap. And how we're going to make sure that we share those roles and responsibilities to serve the one client that we all have. To make sure that municipalities know how they're going to cooperate with each other to serve the one client that we all have. And as we write it, we're going to make sure that we focus on a few principles. There is only one taxpayer. Now, I know I heard a couple other people suggest, no, there's other taxpayers, there's international companies or corporations. Maybe it'd be more appropriate for me to say that there's only one tax, one economy to tax. Ultimately, it comes down to one source that we can't both access and say and strain to the nth degree and then leave high and dry. We have to make sure that we focus that there's only one taxpayer in this system, first and foremost. Secondly, we have to ensure competitiveness. It makes no sense for us as a province to work on reducing red tape and regulations and keeping taxes low so that we can have the most competitive province and have municipalities make up the gap and raise taxes in other areas or raise red tape and regulations. That's why we have to approach this, that there's one taxpayer, and we have to have a coordinated strategy on our roles and responsibilities and what we're going to do to share those resources to meet the needs of Albertans. Or we won't serve the clients that we have, the citizens of Alberta, appropriately. And of course, the ultimate principle that there is no us versus them. Some of you may have heard me say this before. Some of you may have seen my reactions when people ask me a question and say, well, it's their responsibility, or it's their problem, or it's their issue, or we don't get along with them. I don't usually have much patience for that because there is no them. There's only us. We're here to serve Albertans and build better communities, period, full stop. And I have never once in my 10 years, and you'll know this going forward, because I'm going to tell you right now again, I told AMD&C, I don't care about political, arbitrary boundaries that are defined by law. I care about communities. And I have not found one person in this province that stands up and says, I'm from the legally defined entity of this town or this county or this place. They name their community, where they have recreation, where their kids go to school, where they go when they're sick, where their friends are, where they play ball. That's what people care about. And there isn't a single solitary person in this province that lives in one of those communities that will tolerate an us versus them about municipal jurisdiction. All they want is services for their kids and for us to focus on building strong communities so that we can have a strong Alberta. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I need your help to do. And if you lose focus of that, don't call me. Okay? But as long as you keep focus on that, I am only one phone call away if you need me. Our department is only one phone call away if you need help. Our entire government is one phone call away if you need help. In fact, I was looking at the Daily Digest that was on all the tables this morning, and there's a quote that says, "We're in a riding that was formerly PC and is now Wild Rose," and that raises some questions on how to work with the province. No, it doesn't. One phone call. We have decided in caucus and in cabinet and discussed it endlessly, and I'll remind you again, none of us care about the political party distribution. What we care about is building better communities, and nothing will change the relationship you have with working with us, because we won't change our focus on working for every single community in every single Albertan. You can count on that. One last thing before I let you go. And again, thank you very much for this conference. This has been fantastic. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I know my colleagues have too. I have had people come forward, and thankfully none of you guys, but I've had people come forward, members of the public, sometimes the media, that say, do you really think you can write the MGA in 3 years? Do you really think you can overcome some of the boundaries with revenue distribution? Do you really think you can solve all these problems? Because some of them have been going on for a long time. And while you're working in your communities, you're going to have people come to you and say, you won't be able to do that. That won't work. It can't be done. Just do the same thing that I do. Smile at them and say those who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those who are doing it. Thank you.